Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mack, and today we have special guest Brendan Duebner. Brendan is the founder and CEO of Life Skills for Soldiers. He's an active duty Army First Lieutenant. Brendan's Life Skills for Soldiers was created while he has been serving as an Army platoon leader. He realized there were far too many soldiers who lacked basic life skills, causing additional stress and burden on themselves and their families. Brendan began teaching a diverse set of everyday life topics, including how to make a budget, how to start investing, and how to meal plan, in the belief that doing so would help the individual and the unit. As a veteran-funded 501c3 nonprofit, we continue this work by arming military officers with the instructional tools needed to serve their soldiers. That's wonderful. All right, welcome to the show, Brendan.
Sheila, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And the first thing I like to ask is, this show actually started once my best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation, went to best-selling list, and I was invited to the show. And with that, the main point of the book and this show is to share stories about times where maybe you hit a tough situation and got back on track. Do you have a story like that to share with the audience?
Yeah, well, I think like most people, I probably have several. Maybe one that's most pertinent for this conversation is when I was first a platoon leader, 22 years old, was just in college 6 months earlier. And my entire platoon had just come back from a deployment to Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. And, I didn't know what value I could add. And I was, that typical nervous second lieutenant was just trying to figure things out. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing that kind of helped me was while I didn't have combat experience like them, and I just didn't have the real world experience like they did, I did know a little bit about personal life skills, personal finance, all those kinds of things. So when I saw that some of my soldiers and some of my sergeants were having personal finance issues, I saw an opportunity to help, and it really helped me gain confidence, and it really helped our team come together, and it was a great experience.
Wow, that sounds incredible. And it's so interesting that happens. Here we go to school all these years, and then you're sent to the service at a young age, and you don't have these basic skills down. And that, even if you didn't go to the service, a lot of people don't get this training, and then you've got to run a family and a business, and maybe things were going great. And then with this last 12 months, almost, pandemic and everything else that's happened, we've had to be really aware of life skills and budgeting and maybe making do or doing things differently that we didn't have to do before. We could just do auto pay and it was all good. Yeah. And now things are different. We have to think about our expenses and everything so much more. So it's really important. And I'm glad you're here on the show today. I'd love to hear now, how did that change once you started sharing with the people in the service with you? How did that change their lives and their households? How did that make a difference?
Honestly, I think it made a big difference. And because these are foundational skills, these aren't skills that you're going to have them and it's just that in alone is going to change your life. It's more like these are foundational skills that will help you, let's say, get your finances right. And if your finances are right, then that can allow you to do other things, and which, and it has this great second and third order effect. I had a soldier, his name is Private L, and he had disciplinary issues. And when he got to our platoon, he was kind of known for having disciplinary issues. And we did a budgeting class one day, and he sat down with his NCO as part of the class and went through his credit card statements and was just understanding, what money he was having coming in and where it was going. And very quickly realized, he's dead broke, and that he was spending something like 20% of his income per month on the barracks vending machine, something just like totally avoidable, but he's just mindlessly going a couple of times a day, grabbing a few things. And over time that added up. But then when he barely or didn't have any money the last few days before his next paycheck, that would add a lot of stress to his life. And when we kind of address this issue, one, it increases his quality of life. absolutely. But two, it showed him that we cared about him more than just, being a soldier. We cared about him personally, and we were invested in his success.
Mhm.
And we never had any more disciplinary issues from him. And I think it was a great experience for everybody involved.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds so interesting. And now I'm going back to my memory. So you served when you were really young. It was a Desert Storm or another?
No. I'm not that old. No.
Oh,
I got onto active duty in 2016.
okay. Yes. So, wow. Well, I go back to I was a young mom during the Desert Storm, and I had an older mom who was in the service. She was what is it? She was the part-time service, and she was called to duty, and she's a nurse. And she had, as a single mom, she had a little boy that went to school with my son. And so she didn't have a relative or anyone for this little boy to go to. And so he ended up in our home for like a year, maybe a
Yeah.
little over. And it was such an experience to, and my son and him were best friends. So it just was like, of course, what are you going to say? And they became best friends. And then we realized we could open our home, and we ended up foster to adopting 3 other little boys later on. And so it was kind of cool that happened. But that's the thing is to have these plans. Like, she didn't have a plan
Mm-hmm.
for child care situation even, and she didn't have another person to help out. And so these are really important things. And even it doesn't matter if you're in the service or not. I mean, obviously that's who you're helping, but if you're listening in, this applies to anyone. What are your plans, especially right now? What plans do you have? Do you have like emergency contacts? Do you have, if something happens, do you have somebody to take care of your young child? Or what types of things do you have in place to make sure that everybody's needs are met? And so that's really something that you don't want to think about, but that's really, you never know. She was really surprised. She didn't think that she was going to be called to duty. But as a nurse, she was number one during that time. So yeah, that's so interesting. And now over the years, so you've done this now since 2016-ish?
So no. At first, this was something that I was just doing as a platoon leader with my platoon. And I was fortunate to be a platoon leader twice. So, got a few reps at this over the years. And then actually I was on a post-deployment vacation in 2019. And at this time, I was kind of beginning my transition out. So I'm off of active duty now. I'm in the reserves, and I'm at business school at Wharton currently. But in 2019, I was kind of beginning my transition out, and I was just reflecting on my time in the military so far. And one thing I thought is, why don't I try to, step this up? Why have every Lieutenant Duebner or every Lieutenant Mac or whatever out there have to go and recreate the wheel and make these classes and get them self-educated on this? Why isn't there something that's just kind of like the central repository, if nothing else? So that's where kind of the idea started. I started filling out the paperwork, getting the 501c3 set up, all those things. And then quickly realized it was far too big of a task for me alone. So asked some friends from the military, hey, what do you think? And they were great. They jumped on board, and we just started building this thing. And it's kind of morphed over time. And really where we're at now is fortunately we're in a place where we've been able to raise enough funds where we have an expensive learning management system now, and we're really trying to take a revolutionary new approach to this problem. In that, we utilize the train the trainer methodology. We don't go teach troops directly. There are plenty of organizations that are out there and they go do that, and that's great. But from our experience, it doesn't really work because it feels like a one size fits all. It feels mandatory. These soldiers can't connect to the people who are trying to teach them because they don't know them. They're just some dude. Whereas, if you have that lieutenant or that sergeant that they see every day teaching them, they're going to listen because they know them and they respect them. and that lieutenant and that sergeant gets an opportunity to show that they care and show that they are invested in this person. And now they are a built-in, kind of accountability buddy, in that if the soldier says, hey, I want to start doing this with my budget, I want to start doing this with my investing, I want to buy this kind of car, whatever the skill is that we're teaching, they have somebody now who knows that and sees them every day and can help them actually make that come to fruition. So that's our model, and we're using technology, a little ed tech play to train up those leaders and get them everything they need so they can turn around and teach their troops. And we're honestly, we're having a lot of fun doing it.
Wow, that's great. And what are some of the key points that are taught in the program?
We have a few different courses. We have 4 right now, a 5th one that we are actually implementing as we speak, and then several more in the pipeline. But the 4 classes we have right now ready to go is how to make a budget, how to invest, how to choose and use a credit card, and how to buy a car. Kind of the low-hanging fruit of the military, if you will. I think if you talk to any veteran, they will say that a lot of these are skills that soldiers and officers and everybody, maybe doesn't have as much of as they should. And then we've got the next one coming up is how to use your bonus, because that's another thing we've seen just done poorly multiple times. And we've got nutrition class on the way. We've got a TSP, Thrift Savings Program, the military's version of retirement class. We've got a lot of great material on the way, and we really think that these are the foundational skills that if we can help people learn them, it'll have a great effect for them and for their families, and frankly for the military as a whole.
Now, what is the difference now that you're still active duty? No, you are in the reserves. So is there a big difference in the lifestyle or responsibilities or budget now that you're just in the reserves versus being active duty? What is that transition?
It is different. I mean, when you're active duty, you're military all the time. When I was in the Army, I was armying all the time, 24/7. And in the reserves, that's not the case. It's 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in the summer, and the rest of the time you're a civilian and you got to do civilian things. So it is different, but I think the exercise of being able to make a budget and stick to a budget and do that is invaluable for both. I think it's something that isn't taught so much in the military, in that the military does its best to kind of take care of everything for you so that, you can focus on being a soldier or sailor or Marine, whatever. Whereas in the civilian world, no one's going to do that for you. Nobody's going to do it. So I think it's just something that's not so much in practice in the military. And therefore, is why it can add a lot of value.
So now many people like yourself you get to go to school, and that's partially or fully funded by the military, I'm thinking or guessing. Is that right?
Actually, in my situation, the military paid for my undergrad, so I don't have the GI Bill, but there's some other stuff that the military might be able to do. That's all in the works.
Okay, good. So then that's a lot of people leave and then go into their schooling full time.
Yes, it's a great way to transition. Great way to go from you were doing something like I was doing field artillery. How much of field artillery technical things transfer to the civilian world? Pretty much none. The leadership experience does, and it's invaluable, and the management experience and all that, and no regrets, and I highly recommend, frankly. But if I want to go into, I'm in business school now. If I wanted to go into banking, would I have the skills coming from the military? No. Consulting, would I have the? No. You know what I mean? So it's a great way to transition.
Interesting. And is there a difference? Do you see the need for that in the colleges as well with your peers now that you're going back to school? Do you see a difference in the life skills? Is there the need the same, or is it more or less? What do you notice?
I think in the undergraduate population, I think it would be, the need would be the same. The people we're really targeting for this are those junior soldiers, and those soldiers are 17 to 20, young 20s, and that is pretty much the same population as undergrads. So, and like we said, these are foundational skills. So the earlier you can get them, the better, because you're going to build off of these. This is not going to give you life fulfillment in itself. Like, oh, you know how to make a budget. Congratulations, you've done it. you made it. No, but now you have what you need to be able to, if you want to, at some point in your career, you're like, I really want to switch and I want to try this new thing. Maybe you want to go do a startup or whatever. That's gonna be a lot harder if you don't have anything saved up, you know? Whereas if you have had those skills your whole life and you've built this savings, you got a nest egg, you got whatever, you can take those risks. You can do that. And that is going to be things that you look back on it when you're gray and aging and be like, you know what, I'm really glad I did that. And maybe it works out really well. Who knows? But you can't do it if you don't have the option. So what we're trying to do is give people the skills so that they can give themselves options.
Now, do you have any tips for the audience as far as budgeting your money in this very interesting time where people are, maybe they've lost their business and now they're doing a couple of jobs or side gigs and trying to figure out how to get their business back? Maybe they're making 50% or less of what they were making last, 2019, let's just say. Mm-hmm. So any tips on how to tighten the belt and still survive?
I think there's the kind of basic guidance that's given all the time in terms of, eat out less, cut your fun budget, all those kinds of things. And right now that probably makes a lot of sense, right? I think a lot of it is, if you're just starting to think about your budget when you're kind of, in crisis mode, you're behind the 8 ball. I think it's all about setting the good habits beforehand and making it so, if you are controlling what you're spending your money on before, it's going to be a lot easier to cut because, one, you're going to have savings, so you won't need to cut as much, hopefully. And you're not spending your money exorbitantly in the first place. So it's not like you're experiencing this great lifestyle decline because you were living within your means and probably below your means because you wanted to save. So I think, if you are behind the 8 ball, it's all about figuring out, okay, where can you cut? What are the necessities and what are the wants? You're probably cutting a lot of, if maybe all the want, who knows? And really trying to avoid high interest debt. So, credit card debt, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're better off getting some kind of a part-time job, even if it's not in your field or your passion. It's okay to roll up your sleeves. I mean, this is just me, is sometimes you got to roll up your sleeves and do something to get the bills taken care of so you're not in debt. And then you can go do your passion, or you still do that on the side. But it's a short-term fix that will give you long-term focus on what you really want. I mean, I think of different people that, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'm not being political, but on his acting, he went and got into real estate to pay for his acting. I don't think he loved real estate. It's just something that worked. So sometimes you got to do something else to fuel your passions in life, and that's okay. And many people go to the service so they can pay for their education to fuel their passion in life. And they've served their country. And so I think that's just something where you're foregoing something you really want so you can actually have it at some point instead of it just being a dream.
Yeah, I think it's all situation based. And yeah, sometimes, like you said, you just got to roll up your sleeves. You just got to get shit done.
Yes. Now, what tips do you have for those listening in as far as wellness and health and fitness? We always think of people in the military as being very healthy. What tips do you have for those listening in that are trying to get back in shape after the COVID 20 plus happened?
I think it's all about habits. I think the more you can just kind of put things on autopilot and just be so used to doing it, the better off you're going to be. And the more likely you're going to do them. So for me personally, for example, a habit that the military definitely ingrained in me and that I want to keep going for the rest of my life is, first thing I do in the morning is work out. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what is going on. It doesn't matter if I went out last night. It doesn't matter. We are starting the day with a workout. And that's my personal time. So, and that's what works for me. And so for some people, it's right before bed. For some people, it's maybe over lunch, whatever. It doesn't matter when it is. It's just the fact of getting that habit built and sticking to it. And the hardest part is building the habit, right? So doing it for the first 4 to 6 weeks as your brain is getting used to, okay, like this is the new rhythm. This is what we're doing now. But I think really that's the answer, is just build great habits around exercise, around diet, around drinking water, around, if you're into meditation, if you, whatever it is, pick those things and be very intentional about building out some part of your day that you can do repetitively every day or every other day or whatever you want the cadence to be. I think that is the biggest, life hack I've seen.
Yes. Yes, I love that. And I know I'm with a challenge right now, and we're doing this 75 hard. I don't know if you've heard of that challenge, but it's every day you've got to do 2 hours of exercise in the day, and you've got to read a book, and you've got to drink a gallon of water in your day, and you've got to do all these things. And if you take a picture and do these things, and if you mess up on one piece, you have to start on day one.
Wow.
So we've all been on day one many times.
That's quite a challenge. That's one of the more extreme ones I've heard of.
Yes. And after, I don't know, I think it was 17 or 18 days. I was so proud of myself. And then I stepped on a piece of glass and had to have the doctor like pull it out. And I was like, okay, that just didn't happen. So day one, and it was, but it's building the habit. And then I started to see results, obviously, anyway. It's not like day one doesn't mean fail. So if you have to go back and start over again because you had a bad day or some other stuff happened that you had to attend to that one day, you got to get back on the schedule the next day and you just start again. That I think that's the thing, and we just laugh about it because we're always, you can't drink even an ounce of alcohol day one again. Game over.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's like the never-ending challenge for a lot of people, I imagine.
That is challenging. So if you make it fun, you can do those kind of things, and a support group is really helpful. Now, I'm wondering, how can people listening in, if they want to get involved with supporting your programs or groups, how can they help support life skills and help get that education to more people?
That's a great question. I think there's kind of three main things right now. The populations that we serve is really that active duty force and the veteran community. So one, if you know anybody who fits into those two buckets, spread the word, tell them about us. Two, I think if this is something you're interested in, feel free. We do a weekly kind of team meeting where we're happy to let new people sit in and just see, okay, understand where we are, where we're going, and if there's anything they are highly interested in and want to be involved in. So if you're interested in that, you can always reach out to us. You can just email us at info@lifeskillsforsoldiers.org. And then, of course, being a 501c3 nonprofit, something we always have to do is fundraise, right? So if it's something you're passionate about, but you just don't have the time, a financial contribution is always helpful.
That's incredible. And I love that you have a program. So you're also helping veterans to get these life skills in place, because that's one of my concerns is there are so many veterans that somehow didn't get this, and they served many years and they're struggling, especially right now. So that's incredible. And that's really important, because if they have the skills, that's when they're able to really have life-changing things show up, and
Absolutely,
nobody deserves it more. So that's wonderful and really appreciated.
We're very passionate about anybody who has the wherewithal and just the character to raise their right hand and swear to something bigger than themselves and be willing to sacrifice. Those are the people who we want to serve and who we want to help. And we, I think it's better if we can get them on active duty or while they're in the reserves or in the National Guard or whatever, just because they're probably younger and they have more time to develop these skills and everything. But if you're past that stage, if you did that at some point in your life, we're here. We're here to help.
That's incredible. Thank you. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show, Brendan. And I appreciate all you're doing. And if you're tuning in, stay tuned. We'll be back after these messages. All right.